Good morning for those folks that are joining us from the central part of the United States and the West Coast. Welcome to the New York CIO Summit of America. I'm Hunter Muller, lead principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you. We think we have a world-class agenda, really excited, learning from the past and present to reshape the future of business. So big thanks to our partners today for today's summit. We couldn't do it without your support in the HMG network. Our partner company, BetterCloud, Commvault, Darktrace, Singtel, and Softtek, and Zoom. Really appreciate your engagement and support of the HMG model. And please look to their services and look to, when they reach out to you, set up a meeting, learn more about what they're doing, because they really are reshaping the enterprise and driving significant enterprise business and technology value and innovation. And special shout out to DataStax. Today's summit is powered by DataStax. DataStax is a company behind the massively scalable, highly active cloud native data platform built on Apache Cassandra. Look at their amazing clients, over 450, including Capital One, Cisco, Comcast, Delta, McDonald's, Safeway, Sony, Walmart. DataStax truly is an interesting company to look at, transforming data architecture for the real world outcomes. Thank you. And shout out to our SIM partners, the New York Metro SIM chapter. I've been working with New York Metro SIM now for 12 years. Great partnership, seamless handoff, really a proud partner and supporter of SIM in the New York Metro market, as well as across the country. And next up, Mark Taylor, SIM International CEO. Mark, great to have you on the program.
Hey, Hunter, as always, great to be here. Shout out to Cindy and the leadership team in New York Metro. They built a great local community, great leadership team, and really doing some great stuff in the Metro area. And as always, thanks for the investment you make and help us build this, these local networks all across the country, Hunter. Thanks for your investment.
Great to see you, Mark. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks. So, hey, new for HMG is the HMG Marketplace. It's now post-pandemic COVID-19. We've figured out a way for you to meet our top-tier partners from around the world. Take a look at this video here for a second.
Many tech leaders are struggling to find the right solution to their technical business problems. HMG Strategy has created the HMG Marketplace and Reference Center to connect tech leaders with subject matter experts from peer-vetted providers of critical services and hot new technologies.
The HMG Marketplace, think of it as a reference center, a library to find out more about our partner companies and then set up a meeting.
It's challenging for all of us that we can't be together at these events. You won't be meeting necessarily with a salesperson, you're going to be meeting with myself, our senior executive team.
This truly is a game changer. So check out the Marketplace. As Nicole Egan said from Darktrace, you can set up senior level meetings straight away. So kind of working up the channel through the sales channel right into a senior executive meeting right away with our partner companies. It's right in the home page, there's a Marketplace button. You can click through and learn more there. So we have a little survey here, folks, the future of work. Looking for to make today very interactive. How are you driving greater engagement, motivation with your teams? If you would submit your response there, that would be great.
Later in today's program, HMG Strategy founder and CEO Hunter Muller will proudly recognize and honor global technology executives who matter. These top-tier CIOs, CISOs, and other technology executives have genuinely distinguished themselves in business transformation, digital disruption, innovation, and talent development through even the most difficult circumstances. These awards are not given lightly. They are earned. Recipients join an elite community of forward-thinking global technology executives in the HMG Strategy community. We are delighted to celebrate these exemplary leaders and their teams who have delivered unparalleled value to their organizations, their communities, and our world. Please stay with us for the award ceremony and meet the 2020 Global Technology Executives who matter.
So hopefully you can join us, stay till the very end of the program. We'll be recognizing several folks at at the very end. So next up, we have Harry Mosley, the Global CIO of Zoom. Harry, welcome to the program.
Ondrej, nice to see you.
Always good to see you, my friend. You know, love the background too. What is that background? That is interesting.
It's just a blurred background. I actually, my preferred background is this one. This one. I like this one. It's like, it's got nice sort of calm colors. It's a nice calm feeling background. So
Love it.
kind of like that one. I've got a little bird fluttering around over here. I've got the little fire going over here. It's cool.
So Harry, we've been knowing each other for some time, and you've had an amazing career, some 3.5 times CIO in 4 different organizations. And Zoom, now Zoom's the latest, you've been with Zoom over a couple of years probably?
September 6th will be 2.5 years, yes. So how the time flies when you're having fun.
You look great, you're having fun. So talk to us about Zoom and the ethos of Zoom, the philosophy of connecting the world, whether it be in the workplace, the home, with friends and family.
Yeah, you know, it's, well, you know, we were clearly focused on the enterprise, and then COVID-19 hit, and everybody and their mother, literally everybody and their mother and their father and grandmothers, grandfathers, etc., discovered Zoom. And so it's been a very interesting journey over the last 6 months, you know, servicing, you know, the largest financial firms in the world, a variety, you know, every industry in the world, if you will, in something like 226 countries and territories, plus government organizations. You got the House of Commons in Canada running on it. You got the British Parliament running on it. And then, you know, we gave our software away for free to schools. And so we have in excess of 100,000 schools in 25 countries on the platform. So it's been a hell of a journey, and lots of fun stuff too. The Queen actually celebrated her birthday over Zoom. And, you know, we hosted some amazing events like the World Fitness, what was it? Wellness, World of Wellness with Oprah Winfrey, which hosted at one point in time over 40,000 people on the platform.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, how do you view Zoom's role in the enterprise in making, building and making, accelerating a performance organization? How do you view it?
Yeah, you know, sort of, it's it goes back to one of the core things that Zoom was founded on, which is like video is the new voice. You know, many CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, CXOs that I've spoken to over the last several months are like, you know, God knows how we would have survived without Zoom. Because Zoom is the connective tissue, not just from a meetings perspective, but from an experience perspective, because we're able to connect with our employees. We're able to sort of see them, they're able to see us, and it's creating that immersive experience with our people.
So when you look at the future of work, what does it look like from your point of view?
Yeah, so it's, I think it's going to be really interesting. You know, sort of my thesis is as follows. It's like, you know, everybody expected by this point in time that, you know, sort of COVID-19 was going to be rapidly sort of going into the rear view mirror, if you will. I think it's true to say that that's not the case, and that we're in this for the long haul. Certainly, you know, certainly the next 6 or 12 months, you know, some organizations are talking about 18 months. So with that, there's a, you know, and some organizations are bringing people back to work from like 25% up to 50% of their employees coming back into the office. And the fact is, Hunter, you know, when you look over the last 5-10 years, what have these great organizations done? We've made these collaboration spaces in the office where, you know, but those are gone. It's like, you know, if you have pictures of them, keep them, because you can, you know, show your grandkids what it used to be like. So the collaboration in the office used to work really well, not going to work really well anymore. Can you imagine 10 people huddled around a whiteboard? That's not going to happen anytime soon. And so you're going to have a set of people in the office, you're going to have a set of people at home. So now you got this hybrid workforce. It's like, you know, in IT, we worked with, you know, in the hybrid environment for years now with on and off prem. So now we're going to have the hybrid experience from a people experience perspective with people on and off prem. How's collaboration going to work in this environment? And I think, you know, we're going to see some interesting technology innovation, I believe, that will enable us to collaborate. And then there's culture. It's like the culture. It's like, how do you maintain culture when you're onboarding people into this virtual world from the get-go?
So any good tips on building culture in this digital world that we live in now?
Yeah, I think that, you know, sort of, I'm reasonably confident everybody's doing a lot of this stuff already, which is the constant outreach, doing the all hands, etc. I think one of the best experiences that somebody told me about recently was he's a CIO based here in New York City. He's got IT teams all over the world. He's got, you know, in London, in Russia, in India, in Sydney, in Tokyo, and several other places. And, you know, he makes a list of people literally every day, and he calls these people, like 10 or 12 people every day. He spends like an hour on this, and he'll call you up and go, hey Hunter, it's, you know, Harry Mosley. Hey, how are you doing? And it's like, you know, and this is the CIO for this large global organization. He's got about 10,000 people in his IT organization globally, and he's calling some junior person somewhere in the world who's never spoken to the CIO before. He just calls up and goes, how are you doing? Just wanted to check in on you and your family and see how you're coping in this new world. Not to talk about work, not to talk about projects. And then he asks a question like, is there anything I can do to help you personally or professionally? And then 9 times out of 10, you know, there's nothing that they ask, but when they do, then, you know, they act on it. And and he says, it's fascinating. You help somebody in Sydney, and the next thing is I get pinged from somebody in London who said, thank you for helping my colleague in Sydney because it helped me here in London. He says, it's like, it's just, and the buzz that gets created amongst the team from sort of the outreach that he's doing. So if people aren't doing that outreach, I urge you to do that outreach. You know, just skip all the way through the levels and just call people at random, not to talk about work, just to see how they're doing. So huge payback.
That would be an internal opportunity. Probably external opportunities as well, as people are looking to build new business models, new customer sets, and go to market, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of organizations have made this pivot. A lot of organizations have accelerated the digital transformation. Love the story of the, you know, sort of what Lowe's did. You know, Lowe's new CIO, I think it was January she started, and they started going through their digital journey. Then COVID-19 hit. You know, Lowe's being an essential service for homeowners. You know, do they continue? Do they stop? Do they accelerate? They decided to accelerate, and which I think was the right, you know, I believe was the right decision then. And then when you look at their earnings, I think this was last week, their earnings, either last week or this week, I mean, like blew the cover off the wall. So congrats to Lowe's. So, and lots of organizations have gone through this. You know, many people have said that COVID-19 has just accelerated organizations. And, you know, I love telling this story. One of our clients called us up on Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and said, hey, it's kind of like we just decided, executive decision, 175,000 people are going to be working from home on Monday morning. You know, can you support us? And we responded, you know, with a question, what time Monday morning? And so, you know, by the end of that week, 175,000 people were working, you know, working from home, leveraging the Zoom platform. And Hunter, if we had said let's do that 3 months earlier, they say, oh my God, it's like, you know, we can't have 175,000 people, you know, sort of permissioned in a week. It's kind of like, we got to train them. We got to do it. It's like, we have to go through the process, right? So what we've learned is in times of crisis, it's like never lose a good one, right? But in times of crisis, it's fascinating what we can do. Just absolutely fascinating what can be accomplished. The speed of decision-making, the speed of execution, speed of adoption, just really been a remarkable experience.
You know, thank you for being such a great supporter of the HMG platform over the years, Harry. You've been a great partner, and this crisis really has been a great growth opportunity for certain industries and companies, and Zoom really is making the connections. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for all the support, Hunter. Really appreciate the partnership. I just checked out your marketplace, though. I don't see Zoom on there, so we got to get that fixed.
Let's move on. Let's move on that soon. Great.
Okay.
Talk to you soon here.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. Bye now. Next up, Brian Brockway is the VP and CTO of Commvault. Hey, Brock, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, glad to be here.
We're going to hit on a lot of exciting new things here today and reimagining the enterprise and reimagining go-to-markets, the customer journey. But it really all comes down to data, doesn't it? Keeping data safe, protected, and organized. Tell us a little bit about your point of view on data and why data matters and why keeping it safe and secure matters.
Sure, and I think I'll play off one of the comments Harry made on speed. So as we're seeing everything get a heck of a lot faster, agile development, agile projects, data moving in and out of the organization, people moving all across the spectrum. What it does is it starts to say, well, it fuels fantastic innovation. It also starts to open up, a higher degree of risk to the organization. That as data starts to shift around, if mistakes start to propagate, or God forbid, you get into some of the bad actor or the malware and other type environments that are becoming more and more prevalent, that's where suddenly all that innovation can come to a fast halt. And what we've been seeing is in older days when everything was kind of evolved slowly inside the enterprise, it was something you can kind of add after the fact. Now that we're starting to move in a much faster, more rapid pace, this is really a decision point you need to design in. So how do we ensure we can keep pace with the data? We have the security policies, we have the kind of protection policies, and in the event if something did go bad, how quickly can you recover back to a fully usable state?
So Brock, as a CTO of Commvault, you have a lot of experience in the industry, in this space. You're really truly a thought leader. You want to go further on what we're talking about here?
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, I've had over 10 years. I don't want to go too deep into how far we've been at this game here, but through a lot of those years and experience, we've seen a lot of the different evolutions happen across the data centers, the infrastructures, people organizations, application organizations, things like that. What still stayed true to form is ensuring do you have a smart set of policy automation. Have you started to segment your environment into most critical and least critical? And I think the other big shifting change we've been seeing of recent days is the old ideas of kind of a DR plan. It was kind of based on paper, and it was kind of a paper-based exercise you may do once a year. We're seeing that is now really an automated process you have to be prepared to execute on almost a continuous basis. So it's really the evolution of automation coming back into the platform along with all the different environments.
Let's talk about the risks, the downside of not being prepared. How big of a sum can one be exposed to?
I think unfortunately these days you see it in the Google News feeds on almost a daily basis. There's been a couple of the more high profile risk events we've seen on a regular basis. It's no longer just a context of a couple of systems, a couple of laptops, a bag of Bitcoins. Some of these events that have come in and really decimated an IT organization carry an event cost that usually ranges from $1 million to $10 million. And that's not just on the people, the time, the exercise to go back and get it all together. Then you start to think about the impacts across the business. 10 million is where it starts. We've had some organizations that have actually had gone dark on their supply chain because they got hit by a global malware environment. And those costs can start to really creep up into hundreds of millions of dollars and beyond, depending on the scope of the exercise.
That's a big number. Wow. Let's talk a little bit about getting ready, an assessment model. Talk to us a little bit about the Commvault readiness assessment concept.
And this is something we really developed through the last couple of years with customers. So as we responded to a number of those events, how did we sit down afterwards to what were the lessons learned? How can we design out aspects, whether it's technology based, automation based, or kind of policy based? And we've really kind of come up with a 4-step process. First one comes into say, how well are you securing your data environments? It's some of the more common aspects of multiple copies, different locations, ensuring you have the right kind of security credentials and everything else designed into the system. Second piece is coming back over to say, can we actually validate the outcome? If we've got data copies, that's step one. Can we actually use those copies to put applications back into full form? And can we do that on a more consistent and tested basis? The only way to sleep soundly at night is to ensure that you can get back tomorrow morning if you can. Once those foundation pieces are really kind of established in the organization, then it's really much more of a procedural policy based, classifying, looking for the risk threats, what's the most critical ones, what's the run the business applications, and how well do we have them set up and configured, and what's our response plan. Ensure that your run books are not one of the victims of a ransomware outage. And then at the end of it, really kind of taking all these aspects together, putting some intelligence, putting a little bit of AI scoring and some automation into it to say, how do we really get ourselves a risk assessment value, what we like to call recovery readiness? How do we measure the state of the environment? If it starts to dip down, how do we react back and get it back into a good green state?
What does that automation look like?
Yeah, it's a combination. So there's procedures and workflows and kind of the checks and balances, and a lot of that is what we've done on our side is abstracting that up into much more of a dashboard approach. Think about it of ensuring all your windows and doors are locked, all your security conscious configurations have been set in place. Are all of your data assets and data copies, have they all been synchronized to the different locations? That's what we're seeing these days. It's a very large scale problem. The more that you can start to come back over and put some measurement, put some meters and some qualification behind there, it's a lot easier to be able to rationalize it down into almost the simplicity of a credit score to say, how well are we sitting today, and where are we exposed some issues? Let's go down and close those gaps tomorrow, get ourselves back into a clean state.
Well, that sounds like something we should all be doing right away. This notion of a readiness curve and some kind of assessment. Will you do this for clients and prospects?
Absolutely, and this is not always, do you have to come back over and implement a Commvault solution? These are a lot of the best practices, and I'll also share a fair number of the worst practices people have found in the cloud and other environments. We like to really put those together. We like to put those out in best practice papers that you can take home, sit down and share with your team to say, what does our environment look like today? Are there a couple of gaps and other things we should be addressing? And for other organizations, we found, it's when you start to think about data center, multi-cloud, tying it all back together, that's really where a lot have come back into a Commvault solution. As a leader in the data management space, we've been multi-cloud for many years. We've had a lot of this automation for the legacy environments and the bleeding edge Kubernetes plus environments. This is how we can help tie it back into an easy picture for a customer.
Hey, Brock, what can people do to learn more about Commvault and get an assessment done?
Well, absolutely. Reach out. I've added my email onto the link over here. But I think one of the things we also have been doing in these in the discussions with your teams has been offering. There's a nice field white paper we put out to really kind of put a CISO security risk discussion in context with the data protection, data recovery. How do we add some of those layers and elements so you can go back and check with your team and have one of those thoughtful discussions and see what you would like to do next. So I know it's in one of the downloads for the sessions.
Oh, excellent. And can people reach out to you directly?
Absolutely. I'm always available, bbrockway@commvault.com, LinkedIn, and a few other places. But we're always more than happy to jump on and just have that conversation, share some of those stories, share some of those best practices, and see if we can make the world a better place for data, safe data, I should say.
Hey, Brock, great to see you. Great to have you on the summit today. Thank you so much for your time, engagement, thought leadership, and support.
Our pleasure. Thanks a lot, Hunter.
We'll see you soon. Next up, we have Michelle McKenna. It's the CIO of the NFL. I think most folks know the NFL. Michelle, welcome to the program.
Hi.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Looks like you're coming straight from corporate headquarters there.
I am back in my office in New York.
Midtown Manhattan. Wow, that's great. Hey, a little context of your last 6 months. How's it been going, and where are we at regarding this year's season? Everyone wants to know.
Yeah, this 6 months has been like none other for every industry for sure, but it has definitely been a first for football. Just it seems like not that long ago, I was sitting in my office planning the draft, and then all of a sudden COVID happened, and we quickly started working on scenario planning. And the next thing you know, we were all home and on our own computers and trying to figure out how to pull off a virtual draft, and that had to be done in a very quick time frame. So yeah, the future of work came to us very quickly, and luckily we had begun planning for not a COVID situation, but certainly a remote workforce situation for many years. So we were ready. We thought we were ready, and then we learned a whole lot of other stuff along the way.
So what's by the way, congratulations on the draft. I heard there were record ratings, right?
Yeah, there was. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity to do it in a different way, and it was very up close and personal. I think the fact that we were in people's homes and not as tightly produced as we normally did, and I got my first experience as being like an executive producer of a major television show, which was, I thought my job was stressful. Try doing live TV. I can't even imagine if that was my job full time. So yeah, it was great, and we took a lot from it. And I think there are some things we'll keep even when we are able to get back together again.
Your boss must have been pretty happy with the overall result.
Yeah, he was. He's never too happy though, so keeps pushing us.
That's the way to do it. That's the way we do it, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about the 2020 season, getting ready for it, what's the focus been?
It's been about, just like every other corporation in America, except ours is a little more challenging on how to socially distant when you're playing football. It's been about really figuring out how to use technology to keep our players and staff and coaches and employees as safe as possible. And that means we had to stand up in a very relatively short time period one of the largest testing protocols in the country, along with contact tracing, which had not been done to this scale before. We had to find a vendor. We had to, no time to test it, no time to do any sort of working out of situations, and had to just basically go live. And, convince my customer base, which are head coaches, GMs, players. They're a tough customer base, and convincing them to just try this stuff without a whole lot of proof that it was all going to work has been a challenge, but that's what we've been doing. Training camp, thank God, started. We've been now on the field, and we're having great success so far, and we're just, crossing our fingers and hoping for the best, and that we're gonna, our full intention is to play a full season.
Michelle, I think I could speak for most American football fans. We're all really rooting for an amazing season here. Kicks off, when's opening day? Is it in early September?
Yeah, September 10th.
Awesome. When you think of the leadership challenges during this past 4 to 6 months, what are the biggest things that come to mind?
I think, as I said earlier, really leadership really does, leadership and empathy really comes to the forefront. Change is always hard for everyone. So the draft ended up being like a really big change for coaches and players. And, it was just like, are you serious? We have to do this from our homes. And so having leaders that would stand up and just say, look, I know we don't have it all figured out, but we're going to trust each other through this process. And what's been great is when you have long-standing relationships, you can rely on each other for that trust. And so leadership that steps up and trusts each other and backs each other up and works as a team is what gives you resiliency during a tough time. So I'd say that's the number one thing we see for people who are being successful working from home, and those that are not, has been, are they really, first of all, supporting each other, but also asking for support when you need it, asking for help. It's not a weakness to say you need help. And one of the things these video conferences have done for us is we get to see into people's homes and we get to see their lives. Now, I know we have virtual backgrounds, but you also, you'll see a kid pop into the video and you get to learn that all the things that people live with and deal with on a daily basis. And so that has nothing to do with technology other than now we know each other better. And so hopefully that can just continue to make us a stronger team.
Interesting times, right? Did you change your leadership style at all?
I feel like I've always been a collaborative leader. I will say what I have done is, and this is also one of the byproducts of having everybody's box being the same size. All of a sudden, just because I'm the CIO, my box isn't any bigger than anybody else's box on my team or any technical team. And so what that sort of did for me, I don't think it was conscious, but all of a sudden it shrunk me down to the appropriate size, which was just as the same size as everybody else, meaning any idea is a good idea, no matter where it comes from or who it comes from. And so that's one thing I'm going to keep, regardless if, I don't end up needing to do this from home all the time, is just take the time to know way more junior staff than I normally would know, because that's where innovation happens. That's where new ideas happen and bubble up. So that's what I think I've changed, and I hope that I keep it.
Excellent. So more skip levels, right?
Yep.
Hey, when we always talk about by constraining resources that can drive huge innovation, certainly everything changed 4 months ago. What are the innovations that you were able to achieve in the past 4 to 6 months that wouldn't have possibly happened?
Yeah, time constraint is probably one of the best things to, I've learned that just cutting somebody's time out makes you just get really creative. And so, for example, the draft, we would have never considered doing a broadcast quality draft through the cloud. We used AWS basically to broadcast. And broadcast technologies have always been very much broadcast centric. We only do it this way. It's a satellite, it's satellite trucks, it's not wireless. It's not, it never has been, because it was, it was thought that it wouldn't be quality enough. We didn't have the luxury of putting satellites at, all of those players' homes and coaches' homes. So we had to just come up with another solution and be okay if it wasn't as high a broadcast quality as we thought. And our broadcast partners, ESPN was amazing, but they were like, I'm not sure how you're going to pull this off, but we're right there with you. And we just figured it out. And I think that is, time is your enemy a lot of times in IT, and you don't get enough time. But sometimes it can be because you don't get enough time to have all the complainers actually get to push and stop innovation. Even though there were plenty of people who tried, there wasn't enough time for them to stop it. So it was great to be in a position where we could just innovate rapidly and have the tolerance for risk and failure, which is not historically something we've been comfortable with.
This has been a great interview. Thanks so much for coming on the show today and the summit. And I think you'll be staying on to the next follow-on panel here, right?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Great to see you, Michelle. Next up, we have our panel on reimagining the business and the future of work. Cindy Finkelman, CIO of FactSet Research Systems. Cindy, welcome to the program and welcome your panelists. Take it away.
Thanks, Hunter. Hunter, now more than ever is the time for technology to have a seat at the business table. And this is coming off this enormous shift to work from home that many of us led our companies through. And business leaders really took note of this execution and saw increasing value in the partnership and collaboration with technology. So today I'm joined by some terrific colleagues who are really making a difference in partnering with their business partners and reimagining their business and the future of how their companies work. So let me introduce them. Beatriz Copelli, who's the regional CIO and CDO from British American Tobacco. We have Earl Newsome, the CIO of America's IT at Linde. We have Michelle McKenna, who we just heard from, Michelle from the CIO from the NFL. Steve Phillips, the CIO of Alorica. And last but not least, Patrick Thompson, the CIO of Albemarle. So thank you all for joining us. And Beatriz, I think I'll ask you to get us started. So tell me a little bit about how you see your organization leveraging technology to face the challenges of COVID-19, especially in the context of the workplace.
Well, I think with the COVID crisis, what happens that we started, of course, to leverage all the collaboration tools we have implemented. So acceleration in terms of embedding that across the organization globally was really something we focused and we needed to do. I think in terms of the future workplace, a lot of the trends that I currently see coming is around automation and how can we leverage AI and everything that could support kind of a hybrid workforce in the future. Meaning, people who are going to be back in the office, but of course, we're going to still have a portion of people who may be working remotely. So I think this is one of the challenges that I foresee in the future and definitely part of the workplace in the future.
Thanks, Beatriz. And Michelle, you talked a little bit about some of the changes that you've had to make in your business model, including rethinking broadcasting. What do you see sticking around after the pandemic with all of the adjustments that have needed to be made as you've shifted your work processes?
Yeah, I think, it used to be, if you looked at the Gartner Magic Quadrant around UCaaS and Unified Communication Systems, it was always sort of a new thing and a kind of a nice to have. People had video conferencing, but it wasn't really like it is now. And we heard earlier from Zoom about that. So I think that it's now it's table stakes. Like, you can't not have a completely integrated UCaaS strategy across video, telephony, everything. I sit on the board of RingCentral, and watching what has just come through unbelievably fast, and also knowing that it's here to stay. And so for technology professionals, particularly hardcore IT people who have run, sort of non-cloud PBX systems and things like that, you're going to have to really change skill set and be ready. The cloud has been around for a long time. We've all been talking about it, but it really has shown that that's how all our work is going to be done in the future. And so for us, we've been a cloud first company since I joined the league. But it's getting very quickly to cloud only, and that's really the way of the future. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then a lot of our work processes have changed, and people, the talent we can attract and retain, because they don't have to move to New York City, or you don't have to live in LA or New Jersey. We can get talent from all over the world. Has been something that I think will benefit all of us.
So that's interesting. The communication perspective is absolutely paramount, as well as the digitally native skill set. That makes me think about culture. Earl, do you want to talk a little bit about how the culture at Linde has evolved through the crisis, and if it's been impacted at all?
I would say yes, and I want to expand the definition of crisis, because as we think about it from a Linde perspective, I'm thinking about it from a multiplicity of crises, and I called it the infinity crisis mirror that we're actually staring at today, that began with the healthcare crisis, pivoted to which caused the economic crisis. Then we added on in the U.S., and also somewhat globally, the social injustice crisis, now maybe a looming mental health crisis, and how are people going to stay engaged, and employees going to stay engaged with working from home or working remotely for long periods of time. And then if we're honest, a leadership crisis. And so, we have these 5 crises that are impacting our culture. And we think about it, there's 3 words that I use that kind of describe the impacts to culture and the impacts to our business. And, everyone's used this word, so unprecedented is one of those words. That's probably the most overused word these days. The second word, though, is essential. And so Linde, as an industrial gas company, we supply medical oxygen and these kinds of things. So we have had to service people throughout the crisis, against all 5 of these. We've had to understand what the impacts of those are going to be on our business, et cetera. And so we're looking at the third word and trying to pivot to make this an opportunity. So how do we look at these 5 crises and turn it into an opportunity? And that opportunity could be rethinking the way that we do work, rethinking our hybrid work model. And a lot of this will be driven by geographies and specific cultures within specific geographies, which will embrace the work from home more readily than they will in other places. And so we operate a very, central, very regionalized business. And so regionally, we're adapting to the hybrid work structure. We're also in the US, we're going to respond to the social injustice crisis in a meaningful way. We're stepping up our game for mental health and working to engage our employees in a very meaningful way. And we're going to step up and lead across all these constituencies where possible. And so I think, that's been the description I kind of use for Art's response to that, in this improvise, adapt, and overcome. And I think individuals, families, communities, companies, and countries have to think about how do we improvise, adapt, and overcome as we reflect on these infinity crises. And those things will start to determine what our new culture is going to be, or what those elements in our culture that need to change are going to be. So from a Linde perspective, we're looking to adapt those things and respond to those crises across those 5 constituencies to the best way possible.
Adaptability, certainly important for all of us. Patrick, let me segue to you. What about the crisis in your world? And, how, were there any impacts in the culture, in your environment that you want to note here?
Well, first of all, I think all the past panelists took all my answers. So appreciate Earl and Beatriz and Michelle did a great job. So I'm just going to try to articulate a little bit about what they said and how the culture was impacted, as well as the acceleration under a chaotic or crisis situation. With every situation, I think one of the greatest leaders of all time said, under chaos creates opportunity, and I agree. I'm going to piggyback on Earl's thought there, that there is a new norm forming. This won't be the last time we see a COVID situation either, that this is now a new threat, and there'll be COVID 21, 22, and probably more to come. So there is a new norm coming that we might have to deal with for quite some time. And culturally, I think we have shown flexibility that working from home can be just as productive as working in an office. And that prejudice of, do we have to be in the corporate headquarters? Do we have to be in a regional office? I think is starting to go away from a culture perspective, and understand and appreciate that people can work from home or work from a distance just as effective as they did in the office. So culturally, I'm seeing that being challenged, that we don't necessarily have to be in the physical brick and mortar facilities that we have. The other thing is work schedule. The hybrid model is going to come back somewhere in 21, where you're going to have half the people wanting to be in the office, half the people do not want to be in the office. The flexibility of, single parents being able to work from home, it just brings on a whole different talent pool as well, and a diverse talent pool. And so I think that's going to help all of us from that perspective. I think this crisis created, the realization that cloud is necessary and required, and no longer has to be justified or challenged anymore. If you're not in the cloud and you're not agile and you're not, moving as fast as you can, it's very difficult to, keep up with the next S curve, which I think all our companies are going through. I think we all have to recreate ourselves and in this digital space, and the cloud's certainly helping us do it. We've moved over 100 terabytes of data off of local infrastructure to the cloud, and that was a challenge for us in the past to get that approved. And now with this crisis, with people not being able to go to some of our facilities around the world, we literally pivoted in 30 days and moved 100 terabytes into the cloud. And now we're not, tied by brick and mortar data centers at our facilities. So I think those things create opportunity, and it's certainly making us a faster company, and it's digitizing things that should have been digitized a long time ago and making us more efficient. But it's also leveraging the capacity to work from home in a very, very productive way. And that is resulting in a cultural change, how we hire, how we retain people, and what we're going to do going forward. travel is going to be minimized at a corporate level, and it probably just be redeployed to only salespeople and other things that really need the face-to-face interaction, because the corporate management has seen now virtual works. You still need to meet face-to-face for innovation, and you don't ever going to replace that social connection that you have to have, but it's going to get minimized going forward, real estate and travel, I think, moving forward.
All right. I'm hearing an equation come out. Opportunity is a function of adaptability and digital fluency and speed, right? And culture. So I think, thank you. We've talked a bit about culture. So Steve, I'm going to turn it over to another one of my favorite and FactSet's favorite topics is around data and analytics. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what's going on in your organization throughout this crisis in the topic of data and analytics, any investments you've made, and perhaps benefits that you've received.
Absolutely, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Let me make a couple of broad comments, if I could, first, Cindy, and then sort of address data analytics specifically, if that's okay. So I think probably like most of the folks on this call here, when COVID sort of became real for us all, which for most of us is around about March, late March of this year. Like many companies, Alorica looked really hard at conserving its cash. How can we pull cash in? How could we sort of minimize any sort of expense, all with a view of just protecting our position in case there's a downturn in business. And one of the discussions we had as a leadership group was looking at our what we call our business transformation function. That's the group that looks after digitization of the enterprise and our offerings to the client. And we viewed COVID, although something that we had to be real tactical and execute well on, we wanted to keep our investment going in those spaces. So we didn't take a back out of that team. We said, keep going. That's a long-term investment that we're making for the company. Pretty much everything else, of course, was up for grabs. And we did sort of quite a few cost reduction actions there. Specific to data analytics, we run a workforce around the world of about 80,000 people who take calls or support business processes for our clients. We're effectively a business process outsourcing and a call center business. And that's a lot of agents. One of the critical factors in terms of our effective financial performance is avoiding unnecessary employee attrition. So call center work can have very high voluntary attrition. Although we're seeing less of that at this point in time because of the employment situation, that's something that's on our minds a lot. And if we have excess attrition, it drives cost in training people, hiring people. It can be disengaging for the employee base as well. So we've developed, in data analytics, we've fast-tracked and we've developed some science-based data analytic models. They integrate into our workforce management system and attendance systems. And based on selected data points, such as hours worked, missed shifts, immediate team work colleague attrition, we assign a high, medium, or low risk of attrition to every one of our agents around the world. And for those agents that we identify as high or medium risk of attrition, it's a risk, of course. It doesn't mean the employee is going to leave, but we're seeing some factors that are indicative based on past behavior of potential employee that's going to leave. We've got a playbook that we've built up for our supervisors. And those supervisors typically have a follow-up discussion with those agents who are identified at risk, and we try and inquire, is there a risk? Are there some personal factors going on that may be affecting them? And we do our darndest in the right way to sort of retain those employees. As we've been deploying this tool, when we compare sort of where we deployed the tool against our control group, we're seeing voluntary attrition reduced by 9%, which is a big cost saving for us. And maybe more importantly, we're also seeing it drives improvements in customer and agent engagement. So that's good for our business, good for our agents, as well as being good for our bottom line. So maybe, Cindy, just an example there of where we've fast-tracked some of our investment. We already had plans for it. We saw it as even more important in the COVID crisis.
That's a great point, Steve, about accelerating investments in digital. I will tell you that at FactSet, prior to the COVID crisis, we had already begun a process of accelerating our investments, and it's really paid off for us. So your example is just reinforces that fact. I'll open it up to the group. Does anyone else want to share an example of sort of how they've accelerated any sort of investments that have really paid off?
I'll add about, I think one of the things we've always done is scenario plan and scenario planning, and then scenario planning and scenario planning, but I have never scenario planned like this ever in my life. There must be, and so that is giving us the chance to actually speed up some things that we normally wouldn't invest in at this time, but because this has happened, you know, we're moving much faster now and having multiple scenarios play out. So I think that's been one of the things that it's a business function, actually. So back to your point about there's never been a better time for a CIO to have a seat at the table driving the business. You know, now hardly any decision gets made without a consultation with your tech team. I mean, it used to, you were running to catch up with them, and now you're the one leading the scenario planning and the investment. And it's for people that are good at strategy, it's easy, but if you're, you know, a straight techie and haven't had that experience, it can be very tricky. So that's been one of the things that I've seen happen.
Excellent.
I guess one of the things I've seen as well, I mean, yeah, I'm glad, Michelle, you brought up the scenario planning, because I think that's extremely important. And you're right, it moves you from being tactical to being strategic, and also thinking about multiple ways of being strategic. I think that's fantastic. I think it's also brought up this, we've talked about this question, what was the biggest accelerator of your digital or move to cloud strategy? You know, was it the CFO, the CIO, you know, the CEO, or COVID? Right. And so, you know, for us, I think, you know, we've pivoted quickly to the, you know, a cloud first strategy. I think, Michelle, you mentioned this as well, but we did it really bifurcating our applications and said system services should absolutely be in the cloud, because when we thought about what you really needed to do from a remote work perspective, what you needed to do to supply communications, collaborations, technologies to your work from home people, how you had to deal with that extended and low bandwidth kinds of things. You really wanted to do that at the system services level. And so whether it's, you know, at the system services level, pushing as much of that to the cloud as possible, then allowing for that to grow and expand to meet the expanding demand was absolutely essential. My business applications didn't have that same pressure. They were able to support, you know, it just was access and, you know, authorization, authentication, those kinds of services needed to get pushed, you know, doing, you know, whatever it was that you did at your edge to provide a higher security edge. We haven't talked about the risk elements of this extended work from home, but you realize that you're pushing your attack surface out there a little further. And so in order to protect that attack surface, we had to leverage cloud capabilities at the system services level. So it was really a big accelerator in terms of getting system services moved to the cloud. I think we'll still move applications to the cloud on a case-by-case basis. So we sort of bifurcated our cloud strategy and accelerated the system side, and is still doing the business case-driven application side.
Those are great points. Patrick, I saw you nodding before. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how COVID helped you to accelerate some of your digital investments.
Sure. As mentioned, on March 15th, we got the call from the CEO. I was in Australia at the time. We're building a plant down there to build lithium hydroxide, and got the call that March 18th, we're going to have 5,000 users working from home. Can we handle it? And at the time, we were in the middle of our cloud strategy, you know, doing a lot of pilots and things. And our company culturally is very sensitive to change management. And literally over the weekend, you know, we were online with AOVPN for VPN tunneling in a secure way, just like in our office. We had Teams running. We were moving away from Skype and WebEx and a combination of platforms, and standardizing, using that for a collaborative tool as well. And I couldn't tell you that the adoption couldn't go any better. In the first 30 days, we were averaging 80,000 hours of team calls. We're clipping off at about 100,000 hours a month right now, and team calls. There's well over 1,000 team sites that people are collaborating around and totally adopting it, using all the self-service training. Training has gone up tremendously. You talk about statistics. You know, we're looking at all the things that are improving because of the speed in which we did things, and we didn't, you know, take 6 months to roll something out. We took 30 days, you know, or literally days over a weekend, and the adoption is actually better. And it's just amazing what people are. They're relentless, right? They're, you know, they're resilient. If you have a crisis like this, you use it as an opportunity, like I said earlier, and people are doing the training. They're learning more. The capital that we needed for the digital transformation is happening. Now that we have a business strategy around digital manufacturing, digital customer service, those now assets we're realizing we also have to digitize with our customers. And it can't just be about the internal productivity, but it's got to be about the external. And you really look at the market now, and you look at the companies that are doing well, the new blue chips, you know, the Amazons, the Netflix, the Spotifys, and a whole bunch of other things. It's all about, you know, taking a business model and making it digital. And it creates a new norm, and it creates a new S-curve that we all have to embrace, if that's internal or external to our customers. So it's helped with capital funding, and it's also, in my opinion, helped with change management, that we don't need to take 6 to 9 months to roll out a project. People can absorb it much quicker than we ever thought. And it really opened up some serious doors for me in IT that I was struggling to get approved.
Sounds great. And Beatriz, maybe you could share a little bit about, any acceleration that you've had in your digital program through this crisis.
I think not different from the others. We had the same, especially with scenario planning. I think connected with analytics. I mean, crazy times in doing it in such a small period of time, and every week pretty much building scenarios to be evaluated. But probably what can add differently is around the factories. I think back on automation, there was a lot that we needed to accelerate on the go and on the fly, in terms of remote assist for maintenance and everything, because we ended up being a hybrid model with the factory plants. We were not necessarily at full capacity on the site. So there was a lot that we had to accelerate pretty much as we go through the crisis. And I think this will still be there in terms of the trend for the future. So we do see analytics, automation, and absolutely infrastructure with collaboration tools as 3 big accelerations that are going to still be there.
Steve, what's on your agenda? What's next?
So this is our view as a company. We think work at home is here to stay for quite a while yet, particularly for our customer base. So we're looking hard, quite frankly. We're looking at every one of our facilities, and do we need it? Can we downsize it? Can we use less space? And we see that as a cost saving. And we're looking at really ramping up our work at home infrastructure. And that includes a couple of the themes that I've heard everybody talking about here. So, we're all paranoid about information security. It's a riskier environment when you have the majority of your people working at home for the long run. So we're looking at some tools there that we're looking to invest in, some artificial intelligence tools that will use the webcams on people's PCs, particularly for our agents, to sort of monitor activity that's going on while they're taking calls. We're looking at using some new data masking capabilities. So sometimes our clients, we use their systems, their CRM systems, to look at customer details, and we're looking at how we can mask sensitive data on that, for example. So those are 2 perhaps sort of security related aspects that we're looking at hard. And then to a theme that I've heard from a couple of the folks here, we're just going to go full throttle here for the cloud, because what we saw was when we had a cloud our environments were in the cloud, the scale up, scale down was so easy. Whereas when it was in on premise in the data center and the supply chains were disrupted and you had to buy hardware, everything got to be too slow. It didn't move at the speed we needed to move for the COVID crisis. So that I'd offer those sort of thoughts here. as fairly tactical and related to work at home, but really important to business growth, I think.
Thanks, Steve. You know, I'm going to turn to a slightly different topic here, the topic of risk. And Michelle, I'll start off with you. You mentioned that, you know, the changes in broadcasting, and it was kind of a little, you know, you had to adjust. And yet you've also talked about scenario planning. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, has your tolerance for risk changed, or has the organization's tolerance for risk changed?
Yeah, the organization's tolerance definitely has changed. You know, we have typically always been, I mean, any NFL production you've ever seen has been highly produced and to the highest level of perfection. And what you saw in the 2020 draft was a much more scaled back, but personal. And we got so much great fan feedback about it not being so overproduced that people want to know our players out of the helmet, and their families and our coaches that had their children sitting with them during the draft and things. And that was an unexpected surprise that came about because of really, we had to accept some risk and do this from home. Even though it was higher technical risk and higher production risk, it was much lower risk for health of our staff and players and coaches. So we had to trade risks out. And I think that's some of the risk tolerance discussions have been. It's not that we are more tolerant of risk per se. It's just that we have a new perspective on risk. There's risk about things being perfect, and then there's risk of things happening. So having a discussion with you know, a player that now has to be tested every day for COVID, they have to do extraordinary things in order to go to their workplace that is uncomfortable, and they have to stay in masks and things that people don't want to do. Well, the alternative is, you know, maybe we don't get to play if we don't do these things. And so then you kind of, okay, you're right. You know, like it's a lot about perspective of risk. And I think that's what we have done a good job in IT of just showing what the alternatives are and what level of risk each option is. And we present a business question. And I'm not taking the risk on my own as an IT professional. I am saying to the business, these are the things we could do, and this is the risk that would come with it. But, you know, this is the upside too.
That's good perspective. Thank you. I see we've got a question coming in, so I'm going to shift a little here. So have any of you received any budget pressure because of companies becoming more cost conscious in this environment? And I think about sort of the uncertainty in the environment. How long will this crisis, you know, the pandemic continue? There are, you know, as Earl, you know, said before, there are so many other things going on in our world today. So have any of you received budget pressure as a result of any one of those things? All of them, the uncertainty, etc. It's a loaded question. Earl, do you want to maybe start off with that one?
Sure. Yeah, I think, and it goes a bit to what I think Steve mentioned as well. I mean, if you know, what we've seen as a result of these crises, and you know, we had our first order impact. We had to implement countermeasures, right, because we were seeing a dramatic loss in volume. And so, you know, you see, you know, some of our businesses were very volume centric, and they saw a dramatic loss in volume. And so that we had to respond with the appropriate set of countermeasures. As those volumes started to return and we started to look at the costs associated with that, then the desire, well, let's keep those countermeasures in place. Let's understand what the implications of that are. And part of that does spell the opportunity. We learned that remote work does work. We learned that we didn't need some of that fixed cost that we had before. And so I think the pressure will be, you know, even though the stock price is actually, you know, rebounded quite nicely and actually exceeded some former levels. We're seeing, you know, the results from what we've reported publicly has been very positive. And so you're going to see, you know, why does that fixed cost need to come back, especially in an industrial company? You know, everybody's going to ask that question, whether it's real estate, whether it's resources, whether it's transportation, whether it's business travel, you name all those things. Why does that cost need to come back? And I think prudent companies are going to be asking that. And what in these scenarios, as we think through them, if this fixed cost doesn't come back, can we continue to meet the needs of our customers? Can we continue to deliver those experiences that they need and meet the expectations of our shareholders? That's the cost pressure that we're feeling.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Earl. Thank you, everyone, for some really good discussion here. I love the opportunity as a function of adaptability, digital fluency, speed, and culture, the notion of accelerating investments and embracing the benefits that can be reaped from the cloud. And, I'll leave you with the scenario planning comments. I want to echo, Michelle, your point about that. Last but not least, Earl has a call out to everyone. What was the biggest accelerator, or who was the biggest accelerator to your digital and cloud strategy? The CIO, the CEO, the CFO, CMO, or COVID? Thank you all very much.
Hey, Cindy, great job. You guys, this is one of the top panels in 5 months. So brilliant. Thanks, Beatriz, Earl, Michelle, Steve, and Patrick. Great job.
Thanks, Hunter, for having me.
Really appreciate it, folks.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, panel.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Yep.
Excellent. Next up, we have Dave Politis. David is the founder and CEO of BetterCloud. David, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter. Thank you for having me.
Hey, one brief comment. What is the company about? Tell us your space and the unique problem that you guys are addressing.
Sure. So BetterCloud, we're a 9-year-old company, and we are the leading SaaS ops platform. And so we think about SaaS ops. What that means is we help companies, IT specifically, discover the applications that they're using, the SaaS applications they're using, that all their users are using, the shadow IT. We let them manage those applications, automate the onboarding, the offboarding, the mid-life cycle management, all the help desk work, and ultimately secure the data that lives there, their files, their GitHub repositories, their calendars, all of that. So, that's in summary quickly what we do. I'm sure we'll get more into it, but that's high level of what we do.
Can you share with us a little bit about, if you look at the journey that we've been on, what are the key challenges that your company has been helping customers to work through during this crisis?
Yeah, definitely. So, at the highest level, I think we heard it from the other speakers today. I've spent my entire career in SaaS. Just to give some background, I've spent my entire career in SaaS for almost 20 years. Before it was called SaaS, before it was called cloud. So I've been preaching and championing, people moving to the cloud for a long time. And I've been talking about the fact that, hey, SaaS is changing the way that we work in all sorts of ways. You heard it on all the different panels today. SaaS is changing the way we work. And really what happened with COVID is now SaaS is how we work. It's not changing how we work. It's not something people are thinking about doing. It's not something people can procrastinate. It's not something that at this point, it just is how we work. And with that comes, a whole host of challenges. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunities. We talked about those opportunities. You heard it in the last panel. Now, definitely technology has a seat at the business table for sure. And now you've got users who are collaborating in a different way than they've ever collaborated before. And you've got a whole new set of tools that you're using to scale. It's just a completely different world, but there are a whole new set of challenges as well, because now you've got this sprawl. You've got, you may be using, on average, we're seeing companies today are using 80 SaaS applications post-COVID. Pre-COVID, those numbers were 20, 30, on average 40, but now we're talking about, almost 100 SaaS applications. And with that sprawl, you have a lot of challenges. And where we've really been helping our customers is a lot around automation. Frankly, a lot of time spent with people. Unfortunately, in the beginning of COVID, there was a lot of time spent helping people build automated workflows to offboard employees. It's actually a pretty painful thing to have to help someone build, but it's but for our customers and for these IT teams, we save people, days, weeks of work, depending on the organization. We help people build automated security policies around all these cloud applications that they're deploying. So now all of a sudden someone's using a cloud storage system, cloud file collaboration. And we help people build automation around making sure if people are sharing files and if they've got sensitive information, that you're sending a message to the user to educate them. Maybe they have no idea about how to use these applications. So it's been a lot around automation. We're finding that the teams are being asked to do more with less in many cases, and they're dealing with these new challenges. So yeah, it's been a very it's been an interesting, it's kind of, for us, this is kind of our Super Bowl. This is, what we've been building this company is to help businesses do exactly this: move to the cloud, leverage all these SaaS applications, give their users the things that they want to use. So this for us has been the culmination of all of that, and happening very, very quickly. So it's been a challenge. It's been a busy, I'd say a busy 6 months.
I can imagine. So how would you characterize the threat landscape, and how are you helping customers in that regard to address the threats and risks that they're seeing right now?
Yeah, so the threats that we see, it's interesting. I think you heard on the previous panel, for a lot of organizations, this is just a new way of working, and these SaaS applications are just, the idea that you can have a chat application and you can add an entire other org into that application, and you can have, in Slack you can do that. You can add external guests, and you can have people in your entire environment who don't work in the company. You can have files that are now shared with Gmail accounts, posted publicly on the internet. People have more control over their email and how they forward their email, where that goes. So the threat that we're seeing is, it's primarily around, for us, it's around insider threats, but it's not malicious, really. It's a lot of times it's negligence. It's the fact that the user just doesn't know how these applications work. It's the fact that there's no normalized verbiage across these applications. So you may click a button on this one and a button on this one, and they mean two completely different things. I mean, we're seeing people who are installing, applications into their Chrome browser, and the browser says, hey, can I get full access to your email and your this? You see people installing Slack bots. Can I get full access to your chat? Can I get full? And most users just click yes, because it's the fastest way to do it. But with that, they're exposing so much information, and sometimes okay, sometimes not okay. And so what we've seen is there's this insider threat. Of course, insider threats have always been a challenge, but in this new paradigm, it's a different type of threat. And it's happening across a much larger set of applications. And when you now think that every piece of data is in the cloud, there's a lot of information that can get exposed. So that's where we've been helping people. Hey, how do I look across my 200 million files and understand what's being shared where, by who, which department, what content? It's things like, let me look at all my users who have been offboarded from the company. Have they actually been offboarded? Do they still have access? I mean, we're seeing on average 3 to 4% of employees who get offboarded from companies still have access to all the corporate data. And so things like that, that's where we're seeing a lot of this, this threat. In the SaaS platforms themselves are secure. I mean, they're not saying that nothing can happen, but the SaaS platforms themselves are pretty secure. And it's not the external kind of threat coming into that SaaS platform and getting your data, even though that is a risk. It's your users and how they're interacting with the data.
Absolutely. So, we'd spoken a little bit before about the concept of SaaS ops. Can you share with us how you define this movement and the role it will play in the future of distributed work?
Sure. Yeah. So SaaS ops, obviously something I'm very passionate about. If you can't tell about all of this, so SaaS ops for me, when you look at DevOps, let's look at DevOps as a good analogy. Is DevOps 2006 is when AWS came out. 2009 is the first time the term DevOps was ever used. Now you extend out 10 years, more than 10 years, and look at what DevOps is. I don't think there's an organization today that doesn't have something in the DevOps realm, someone in the DevOps, some tools. SaaS ops is the same thing, except for the front-end technology. DevOps is for the back-end technology, for the infrastructure layer, and SaaS ops is for the application layer. It's the same idea. Everyone who you heard from today, all the CIOs have these teams who are focused on bringing these new tools to their users to do work every day. Their entire workforce is using these new tools to do work every day. With that, you have to have a new practice area. There's a whole transformation area. There's the discovery, the management, the automation, the security. And so SaaS ops is this practice that is, again, very analogous to DevOps, But for the front end technologies that people are doing, they're working day to day. And so this is really more of an IT function than a developer function so that's kind of how we think about it. This has been probably, the first time SaaS Ops was used probably about 18 months ago, 24 months ago. And now we're seeing thousands of people with SaaS Ops in their title. We're seeing all these job postings going up. I would bet, especially with COVID, that we'll find in the next, call it 12 months, it's going to be one of the fastest growing titles for IT on LinkedIn in terms of, because this is the problem and this is the function that every company is going to need, in whatever you call it. You can call it IT operations for SaaS, you can call it SaaS Ops, you can call it anything you want, but at the end of the day, there's going to be dedicated teams to managing these collaboration suites and all these applications for that matter. So that's what SaaS Ops is.
Hey, David, thanks for coming on the program. Tom, thanks for filling in there in the technical glitch. Hey, great to see you. What an amazing company. Who are your backers? Who funded you folks?
Yeah, so the investors we have, Excel, Bain, Warburg, Pincus, Flybridge, Graycroft. So we've got a number of top tier investors, and we actually just recently closed a round right after COVID hit. And like I said before, this for us, this was the accelerant that frankly we've been waiting for 9 years. It's just everyone's been saying we're moving to the cloud, we're moving to the cloud, we're moving to the cloud, and then this happened, and now everyone's there. So it's been and it's been great that we can actually help people do what we set out to do.
Congratulations on your vision and being a founder and CEO. I'd love to invite you to my CEO club. We meet regularly, and look forward to doing a follow-up interview with you for our research agenda as a top disruptor in my new book.
Great. Thank you, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. Thank you. Excellent. So next up, we have the digital innovation in highly distributed environment. And welcome to the panelists. We have LaVon Edwards, Beni Lopez, Neelu Sethi, as well as Kimberly Stevenson. Kim, great to see you.
Hi, Hunter. Great to see you.
And we have a little innovation poll, folks. I guess we're going to make this interactive here to start. If everyone take a minute, what are the key opportunities for driving innovation within your company right now? And while people are doing that, Kim, let's just set a little context. I remember you flying into London about 10 years ago with us. And you flew in, I think, from Ireland. You were at Intel at the time, and you were saying disruptor, be disrupted at that point. And boy, you really called it back then 10 years ago. What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about now, Kim? What's in your mind now?
Well, I was thinking about this call yesterday, and I happened to be reading the NVIDIA earnings report, and I thought, that's really the message. So the summary of that is they grew 50% year over year, and they have 4 business segments. 2 of them were up and 2 of them were down. So one of them is automotive, right? So automotive was down 47%, but gaming was up 26%, data center up 167%, and then their pro visual line was down 47%. And you kind of go, crap, how are they managing that, right? You got one explosive growth, one like evaporating business. And that to me is sort of indicative of a lot of our businesses, that there are multiple lines of businesses that have different dynamics in the marketplace, and your ability to pivot resources, marketing plans, sales efforts to meet the demands of a changing market is critical. And most of that happens through some form of technology digitization play, because you just can't sort of be siloed anymore. And you can see it sort of happening real time now, and how I say, the winners of the next decade in every industry are going to be those who leverage technology to exploit all of the resource and knowledge they have in their company. And I think that we're seeing it happen. It's playing out.
Really fascinating. Jensen's an amazing CEO, right, at NVIDIA.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Kim. We'll circle back to you here in just a minute. Hey, LaVon, welcome to the program. LaVon Edwards runs U.S. go-to-market for Singtel.
Thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Singtel's a real global company, right? What are you seeing now on the global landscape? What's got your eye as it relates to Asia Pac, China?
Yeah, you know, Hunter, we're seeing a lot of a lot of tension and challenges for global companies that are doing business, around the world. And in some parts of the globe, it can be a challenge. And customers are having to adapt, and they're really having to find, strategic partners that help them navigate that landscape. And that's where Singtel really comes into play, is that sometimes our name doesn't really give you clarity of who we are. You think Singtel, you think Singapore Telecom. So we're no longer just Singapore, and we're no longer just telecom. And so really our reach is throughout the Asia Pac region. And the name that we have, most people are probably familiar with some of our subsidiaries, like Optus in Australia. We own them 100%. We own parts of Bharti Airtel in India, Globe in the Philippines. So we've got a great reach throughout the Asia Pac, and having those resources and affiliates there really allows us to help our customers navigate, some of the challenges that take place in that part of the world. So we're excited to help customers to navigate that.
LaVon, how are your customers dealing with the whole China tension right now?
A lot of them are really taking a look at how they partner in that region. The World Bank Group provides a measurement of ease of doing business index. And, China carries one of the largest GDPs in the country at number 2, in the globe at number 2. But when it comes to ease of doing business, it can be very challenging there. And so that's where Singtel really steps in. Singapore is actually rated number 2 at ease of doing business and has one of the world's, top economies. So we really help customers kind of navigate that Asia Pac landscape, through the relationships that we have, through the infrastructure that we have. And then most importantly, is through the boots on the ground that we have in country. So for example, in China, we have 3,500 employees there. We've got 85 POPs throughout China. We've got our undersea cable systems that connect into China and into Hong Kong. So we're there to kind of help our customers do business in that part of the world and kind of navigate, some of the tensions and things that exist in the Asia Pac.
Excellent. Thanks, LaVon. We'll circle back to you here in a minute. Next up, we have Neelu Sethi. Neelu is president and CIO at Reddy Ice. Hey, Neelu, you've always impressed me in the middle of the pandemic, COVID crisis, how positive you were then and how positive your organization is. What's the importance of having a positive mindset?
Huge, especially in terms of crisis. But first of all, Hunter, thank you for having me. Glad to be here and among wonderful panelists. Looking forward to this wonderful session. So, quite frankly, when crisis hits, that's when leadership resilience shows, right? And leadership, I've never ever seen a leadership where, or recognizing a leader who is not a positive leader, right? So it's everything that we have gone through in last 5 months is just no one ever imagined, no one ever prepared for, no one ever thought of, right? The entire world has shifted. And, that does mean that we go through so much of fear, ambiguity, anxiety, what's going to happen. And the positive nature, positive sense, glass half full, really plays a big role. And why is that? I feel that when you deal with these issues, usually you go through things which you start to respond, you start to recover, and then you start to thrive, right? And the only way you can travel this journey is when you lead from the heart with a positive intent. And bringing people along, bringing people through this, and acknowledging, right? I don't know everything. I know what I know, but acknowledging that, hey, I am also dealing with the challenge that my people are dealing with. And when you start to do that, you start to bring people with genuine mindset, with genuine and positive mindset, and start to evolve. So I believe positive flavor is a big part of leading in the crisis mode for sure.
When you think of the hybrid work environment we're in right now, how do you keep people engaged?
Huge component. I mean, everything we do, Hunter, as CIOs or as leaders, I mean, engagement, relationship is everything we do, right? So let me give you a quick example. When we walked into this stage, IT was carrying tons of load on their head, right? We had to figure out overnight making the entire organization go remote. We had to make sure that we don't miss a beat. And working for Reddy Ice, as the name suggests, we are the biggest ice manufacturer and distributor in the nation. We walked into really pandemic in March. And from Memorial Day, our peak season starts, which means that's when we actually sell the most, right? Ice rolls when the 3-digit 100-degree and above temperature starts rolling in the country. That's what happens. And, you know, it was super, super important to keep people engaged because we were just 6 weeks away from our peak season, and our peak season is equivalent to Christmas for Reddy Ice, right? We sell as much as we, you know, other retailers sell during Christmas. So keeping people engaged, acknowledging, bringing them together, we did phenomenal amount of work. You know, whether I made phone calls, I was on the calls for 14 to 15 hours a day, quite frankly. I was picking up calls, I was reaching out to business leaders, talking to them, what's happening in the field, what's happening with our drivers who needed to roll the trucks. I was talking to my team members distributed across the nation, living outside the country, what's happening to them individually. So, you know, doing all of these things were important, but we didn't stop there. What we did is we did a lot of fun things. We brought people, kids to work, pets to work, all of the things that you have heard, you know, now these things are dated, but at that time we were getting super creative and doing things, right? And things were very well received. But quite frankly, I think the way we keep people engaged is when you lead from the heart and then start to evolve them into, you know, courageous decision-making. In other words, start removing hurdles, start giving them the empowerment, start showing them the things that they can do. And that's when my team actually started stepping in and started rolling out bots, started bringing machine learning in, and we started removing the roadblocks, and the engagement started happening, right? And when that starts to happen, the other way, you know, that worked very well for me is as we were doing it, we were moving from respond to recover. And, you know, you start to then paint the picture of a compelling future. From Reddy Ice perspective, as you can imagine, you know, we just heard from the CIO of NFL. There were no NBAs on NFL. Everything stopped. All big events stopped. Sports, Disney, they completely shut down. American Airlines is not flying, and the pallets and the truckloads of ice that we send to all of these places all of a sudden had stopped, right? So you can imagine the shift that was happening in our business model. And how do you really start to paint the picture of a compelling future when all of this is going around? And it's important to start filling people's mind with the information that's more compelling and showing the positive, showing what's working, showing how grocery channels and convenience stores are really flooding ice, and ice is in demand. And before that vacuum that was created in people's mind gets filled with the negativity, right? So it becomes super important to engage them through all of this and then start to move them slowly towards the thrive and start building new business models. We started thinking through unbelievable amount of new business models, Hunter, after that. So that's just a long answer to your short question.
Excellent. No, love it. Thank you so much. Great job, Neelu. I'll circle back to you in just 1 minute. Next up is Beni Lopez. Beni's the Managing Director of Industrial and U.S. Markets for Softtek. Beni, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. How are you, everyone?
Excellent. I think you win the color shirt of the year award. That's amazing.
Well, actually, I flew yesterday to drop off our youngest daughter to college here in New Orleans. So I'm in New Orleans. So.
Okay, there you go. Congratulations. Hey, Beni, what are the top 3 things you're seeing out there, lessons learned in the past 4 months that would apply or be of interest to a broad-based tech leader audience?
Right. Well, and I've been listening to what's been said, and I think I would pick my number 1 lesson is that it's all about people. All the focus, time, investment, tons of miles that at Softtek we have, especially in the leadership roles, invested over the past years to make sure that we have a unique culture that we feel very proud of is what made things happen. So apart from all the different technologies, and I'll get to that in a minute, it's really making sure that we keep people engaged. We believe that given the right environment, amazing things can happen, but they won't happen without motivated individuals willing to collaborate in a way, shape, or form. And that's how I believe that the lesson learned so far is that those investments pay off. I mean, making sure you develop a culture of openness, of participation, of collaboration, of making sure that that they know with authenticity that we are there for them in all aspects of life. So, and now it's being enhanced with digital platforms, of course. I mean, we started the development of our digital passport platform, focused as a channel to communicate bi-directional with everybody, to make sure everybody was okay, taking care of the symptoms, potential cases. And that same platform is what we're leveraging to also move to a hybrid model and how they're going to be allocating space in the different facilities. And at the end, again, the number 1 is how do you make sure that you have that empathy, engagement, and that ties to execution with people as well as with organization. The second lesson would be distributed and enterprise lean agile works, right? I mean, we've been doing it for a while and literally no downtime. It was mentioned before, DevOps, SRE, data science, analytics, microservices, APIs, all of those modern architectures work particularly well in this environment. And I would probably add number 3 is that we need to double down on our investments around AI, automation, analytics, and very importantly, organizational change management. It's amazing how as we have been helping, especially in the past 6 months, different organizations. For some of them, it was also a realization on how different gaps had to be fixed as well from the organizational perspective and change management. So it ties back to people in a way. So I would say those are the top 3.
Excellent. Appreciate the insights. Thank you. It came back to you when you think about the shifts that we're seeing in the marketplace and how can a tech leader, CIO capitalize on opportunities? You talked about in the video, the unevenness in the various business models and being ready to pivot and help the company accelerate?
Yeah, so I think, the first phase of this was sort of that disruptive, do what you have to do to keep people working and get them set up. But I think we're entering a phase now that's really about growth for companies, and it is about, helping the business, 1, execute better, so more effective execution, and then 2, it's reinventing the business so that you can operate in this digital world seamlessly. And, I really believe that the CIO seat is one of strategic importance to every company. And it really is about that business growth and business performance side. I think most CIOs are really exceptional at the employee experience side. And I think generally when I see companies hiring for CIOs, they're looking for that, right? And I would stretch that into being, be a part of the growth agenda for the company and the performance agenda for the company. And I think you'll rewrite how the company operates. And that's really important.
If someone's not there, how do they get there?
Yeah, so, one thing that most CIOs have is they understand the company's processes, and almost no one else in the company does. So leverage that, but use your stakeholders, because as IT professionals, we interact with every part of the company. So we have stakeholders, right, to enlist them in the art of the possible. Because most people don't actually believe really hard things can be done in a short period of time. They'll want to push you out over some number of years, and we just don't have that time. Companies don't have that time, right, to do that. And so I would say leverage your stakeholders, demonstrate you understand the processes of the company, and therefore you can be part of that growth agenda for the company.
You've had an amazing career over the years of success. Any success tips?
Yeah, so I think the stakeholder management, and building a strong network. I said, don't get into the transactional relationships with your peers of the company. What I mean by that is have problem, solve problem. Yeah, solve the problems. Those are transactional, but invest in that relationship so that you're the go-to person when, hey, I was thinking about this. Do you think we could get that done? Is it, how would you think about this problem? And so always think in terms of the business performance and how you can help others, right? So I would say that's key. And then the second thing is be provocative, right? Don't incrementalize things, but really think 2 or 3 steps ahead, and then work backwards from this beautiful end destination into where you are today versus working from where you are today forward. Because people will rise to the challenge if they believe in the destination. They don't rise to the challenge if it's another task to get done for tomorrow. And so I think it's a really inverted way to look at things that's important. And I look at my calendar once a month, and I look back and I think about how much time in that month did I spend describing and inspiring the future versus working on the problems of today. And I'm never happy, by the way. I'm never happy with that answer. But if we don't, who else will do it? If we don't spend our time describing the future for our employees, for our customers, for our peers, who's going to do it? Because we sit in a technology space where we see what's possible. And so I would say evaluate yourself. How much time are you spending describing the future to get people inspired?
Awesome. Great advice. Great input. Thanks, Kim. Hey, LaVon, back to you. When you think about Singtel, you guys are really global and have an amazing footprint in keeping the world connected. A little bit about your mobility, the connected platform you have with your mobile devices.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to mention there that really Singtel brings to the table that helps our customers be successful. And I think you've heard it throughout the conference today that with the COVID-19 situation, we've had companies overnight have to adapt in a moment's notice, right? All their employees are working from home. There's more reliance on the cloud. Even this call that we're on right now takes place cloud-based as well. And so we've seen companies have to adapt. It's almost like 10 years of adoption of technology had to take place in just a couple of months for companies to continue to be successful in supporting their customers. And so Singtel has had a huge investment in those next generation technologies. And so if you can imagine, once the COVID-19 hit, you had companies that had to increase their bandwidth significantly getting into these cloud platforms, right? We talked about agility, having that sort of flexibility in a moment's notice. And Singtel has made significant investments in an infrastructure that gives customers access to that agility. Just like you would go into a cloud environment, spin up additional resources and things there. We've created that same sort of infrastructure so that the connections that get you to those cloud platforms has that same sort of agility. So if you can imagine yourself going into a secure portal, hey, I'm Zoom, I need more bandwidth to help with, you know, my customers that are doing these video conference calls. I need to have that happen right away. I can't wait for another 30 days for something like that to take place. I mean, imagine yourself going into a secure portal, turning up that additional capacity that you need to support your customers, you know, through those you know, challenging moments and stuff. And so that's a sort of what we call software-defined infrastructure that Singtel has put in place to really help our customers have that sort of agility they need to service their, you know, their customers and their employees.
LaVon, how can people get in touch with you to learn more?
Yeah, so we will. I'll post my email address and phone number here into the chat. You can reach out to us at singtel.com. We've got a team here in the U.S. that helps our, like I said, our U.S.-based customers facilitate interactions and services around the globe. So we're excited to support you in any way, and we'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for coming on the program today.
Thank you, Hunter.
Great to see you. Hey, Neelu, final comments around your leadership style?
Lead from the heart. Absolutely lead from the heart. Everything else, as a CIO, I know what to do, right? From the technology perspective or whatnot. But, you know, the one common theme is everything we do, we bring results, but those results come from people. So we got to take care of the people. If we take care of the people and we lead from heart, everything else is possible. So that's my final comment.
Awesome. And I see Kim in the chat just said hello to you. Hey, Beni, when you think of the whole stack of processes and technology and Softtek's go-to-market, what really matters as it relates to your unique space that you occupy at Softtek across industry? You're on mute. There we go.
All right. Still muted.
No, you're good.
All right. Yes. Well, there will be two things. First of all, we've been around for a while, so we've lived through multiple generations of technology, if you will, and are very fast adopters of new trends. So I mentioned before that whether it's our cognitive RPA platform, whether it's a paperless factory solution, our IoT platform for the remote monitoring and diagnostics of assets, whether it's connected cars and ways to monetize data coming from that so that companies can evolve on how they provide their business models, how they evolve their business models, or whether it's intelligent test automation, or there is cloud-based pre-configured solutions for industrial clients as well as e-commerce, or adopt our consulting frameworks for the new low-touch economy, where we leverage for clients, which we're doing our digital passport, where we're taking learnings from what happened in China, what happened in Europe, what happened in the Americas, etc. So it boils down to stating truth to our mission of providing value through technology. So we're always thinking on how to provide the best solution leveraging technology. And behind that, there's obviously, as I've mentioned before, amazing people, but it's really all about how can we, understanding what technology can do for us, get to the best solution as quickly as possible in the most efficient manner.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for coming on the program today, Beni. And how can folks get in touch with you?
My pleasure. Thanks for having me again. I'll also put my info in the chat. It's blopez@softtek.com.
Okay.
And be happy to engage.
Awesome. Great to see you. Hey, Kim, thanks for coming on the program. LaVon, really appreciate it. Beni, thank you. And Neelu, great job. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, next up is Marcus Fowler. Marcus is the Director of Threat Intelligence at Darktrace. Marcus, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter. Always great to see you.
Hey, a little bit about Darktrace, your unique position, what you're doing now, and what makes Darktrace uniquely different.
Sure. Yeah, Darktrace is an artificial intelligence company that's applying that technology to cybersecurity. For me, outside of the really novel application of both unsupervised, supervised, and deep learning, so really covering a lot of those AI applications, was their security point of view, and that is enforcing and understanding normal of your digital environment rather than trying to predict threat actor or threat attack, which is really, for me, kind of the next generation and emerging threat space, right? Not being signatureless, so allowing yourself to really defend against whether it's a 0-day, it is nation state, it is ransomware, it is insider threat. I don't need to know what it is to know that it's bad and know how to stop it.
Okay, interesting. And what are you seeing different in today's landscape, threat landscape, and the work from home environment? The whole surface now dramatically got bigger, right?
Sure. And I think the big first thing was, where's everyone going and how do we meet them there to secure them, right? We heard some great conversations today from your folks, always fantastic panelists and interviews on the HMG front. And a lot of them are talking about how they're evolving business, how they're doing that digital transformation, how they're leaning in. And I know a lot of them mentioned security, but for us as a cybersecurity company, to meet them where they're going, right? Allow them to lean into innovation securely is really critical. So it was making sure that as we saw that heavy expansion of SaaS, as we saw increasing dependence in cloud, more concern about endpoint, for us, it was kind of two different conversations. One, where are they going and how do we ensure we get visibility there, right? Because you really need that visibility of what's happening within your environment. And two, how can we ensure that we're augmenting that human team so that they can meet the increased pressures and pace that the crisis has brought on?
So when you think about kind of the calls that you all get at Darktrace, because you have such an amazing viewpoint across industry on a global platform. I mean, what are the biggest breaches right now that are actually happening? And then how does Darktrace, with your AI and learning system, all figure it out and protect the enterprise?
Sure, and I think if we're doing it right, we're making the calls and they're not because we're waking them up in the middle of the night via, whether it's our SOC services or some of that saying, hey, this is going on, this is truly malicious, let's get on it. Or they're watching the UI and it's alerting to them, or they have the mobile app and it's alerting them that way. And I can probably just cover some of our July threat trends because I think this is just a great example, right? The first was external data transfers, and as we've seen that diversification of where the workforce is, and where they're needing to operate, they're needing to move data inside and outside the corporate environment, sometimes for business operations and business resilience, and sometimes because it's a malicious actor moving information outside, whether it's sensitive intellectual property, customer data, user data. That was one that we got a lot of that seemed to spike a little bit in July. Ransomware, I mean, we saw Garmin, we've seen Canon, any number of ones. We see ransomware continue to have the return on investment needed for attackers to continue to lean in on ransomware. We're also seeing them kind of diversify their tricks a bit. They're harvesting more sensitive data to kind of apply it as leverage with regards to the ransomware to increase the price they might ask, as well as maybe facilitate a faster payment, that type of leverage. And this is at a time when companies are already, kind of fighting through the crisis, and another blow like a cyber attack could be significant brand damage, and user damage, if not addressed it quick enough. A couple other ones we saw, crypto mining. So that's the use of your own company's resources in order to do crypto mining. We see this with employment and economic uncertainty, that insider threat, that crypto mining seems to spike. And the last is almost an artifact of, the spear phishing, is we're seeing actors go in and actually get into an email account and then block out the original user to kind of further embed themselves and maybe lily pad or conduct some of those business email compromises.
Hey, thanks for coming on the program today, Marcus. You're going to be part of this follow-along panel. How can people get in touch with you? We have the marketplace that you guys were early on supporting us. Really appreciate that, you and Nicole.
Absolutely. Yeah. Big fans of the marketplace. If there's any other questions, can easily come to darktrace.com. We have a number of webinars. We have a Library of Congress, basically full of white papers to dig into more of the technology. And then for me personally, it can easily be found on LinkedIn, Marcus Fowler, and then Darktrace.
Brilliant. Great job, Marcus. Stay with us, right? We're going to bring the rest of the panelists on securing the future of work Welcome, Jesse, Cindy, and Ondrej.
Thanks,
Thanks, Hunter. Pleasure.
Great to see you all. Hey, Ondrej, you're a little bit of the outlier here. A little context. Give a little context to your background and what's different about your organization. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Hunter, for having me. I started close to 20 years ago, something very similar to your intelligence agency, and primarily covering cyber military type of operations. And feel very privileged I built something very important in our sector, and that's trust. And I serve the various missions and parallel to Department of Justice, and we provided significant evidence into various indictments from APT-10, XZH, Samson to Iranians that you've seen, and also a group called Lazarus. So feel very privileged to work with the Secret Service and the FBI on various cases. And been doing this for close to 10 years. Can't do anything else. All my life, I just broke things. I was a crypto breaker for a while. So I never actually built anything. So it's a very serious challenge to build anything in my life, but a pretty good breaker and investigator.
Okay, love it. Okay, I like that. It's an interesting angle, right? Love it. Hey, Jesse, a little context. Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks on the panel and who's attending the summit and what DRiV's all about?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. I'm Jesse Bociek. I have the privilege of serving as DRiV's Chief Information Security Officer. DRiV is part of a larger organization, Tenneco. Tenneco is in the automotive supply chain, and so we provide a large number of the parts that go into all of the OEMs from an automotive perspective, and then, of course, all of the aftermarket as well. I have the privilege of managing risk, trust, security, privacy, and compliance for the organization worldwide.
And what are you seeing out there right now? What's got your attention? What's on your mind?
You know, frankly, folks are tired. I'm concerned about the long-term effects of some of the current conditions that are happening. You know, regardless of where you stand on a particular matter, whether it be pandemic, social unrest, economic shock, the election season, going back to school, work from home, or any other matter, quite frankly, the truth is, as far as we know, it's more than any human has had to endure to this point. While I'm certain things can and will get a little bit worse, the average person is overwhelmed by all the change at hand and the tensions we face, and the speed with which we collectively and individually are moving. You know, the sum total of human knowledge is in our pocket at any time in real time these days, right? So I'm not sure of the outcomes, but I stand by my position that authenticity in who we are and the humility to admit mistakes and changes in position and the desire to help others will see us through. But seriously, give each other a break. We all need one.
That's really well said. I like it. It really makes some sense. Cindy, you want to follow up on that?
I don't know that I can, Hunter. That was really comprehensive and well put, Jesse. You know, Cindy Finkelman, CIO of FactSet Research Systems. Yeah, there's no shortage of stuff going on. Is 2020 over with yet? You know, and I'm sure many of you, I'm knee deep in planning for next year already. So, you know, it's kind of, it is a little overwhelming. But for me, the topic of culture and you know, how culture is part of all of this. You heard me in a previous panel talk a little bit about culture, and you know, it's just it's something that's top of stack. And here, you know, with specifically with regard to security, right? How the culture of your organization can contribute to you know, good security hygiene, right?
Right. Culture matters, right? Culture really does matter. I mean, Marcus, you guys have a really interesting culture at Darktrace, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I get to deal with both our internal culture as well as all of our companies that have their own stresses, right? And that are clients, and we're trying to kind of work with their security teams and how they're handling it. And I did a number of check-ins throughout the current crises. Pick whichever one you want from Jesse's bucket of crises that we have in terms of like how are things going? You know, what are the friction points? Where can we assist? And a lot of it also was leaning on, hey, are you using some of these areas where you could be more efficient because there is some application of AI here? Can you do this? Some of the things they already had. So it almost became a really discussion of let's make sure you're squeezing as much value and efficiency for your team out of workflows so that they can try and find those extra cycles that they're already being taxed on. So I think for them, it was also like, how is their culture adopting? But then, you know, ours was very much kind of pivot and lean in and assist.
Okay. And what kind of advice step advice would you give CISOs to really secure their environment, Marcus?
Sure. I mean, some of that was kind of where they were at as an industry. Some of them were hunkered down and trying to survive, and things were frozen if their industry was getting pummeled because of the economic uncertainty or realities of change depending on the industry. So it really wasn't a kind of one size fits all kind of recommendation or discussion, but rather where they were as a company, and if they wanted to, hey, I need to move quickly to cloud and SaaS, where how can we be protected there? I really leaned heavily on our CXO council, our CISO, our CIO council to say, where are you headed? And I'm wanting to kind of turn back and say, okay, we want to make sure we're meeting them there, because very often it was, I want to broaden my partnership with trusted, security partners rather than go find a new one that I have to kind of do a POV. I need to do all these things that I don't have time to evaluate. So how can I get better, faster with people I know?
Right. Okay. Well said. It does come down to relationships, right? Ondrej, your kind of checklist for folks to get their enterprise safe and secure. Any tips?
I would say you look at organization, especially now for all your remote connections. What we've seen the threat actor look at, for example, like PT41, Maze Group, as well as Riot Group, to exploiting the VPN, Citrix, and Zoho platforms. And those attacks happened between, I would say, December and March. They were like a sniper type of missions. They also circumvented two-factor authentication. And one of the reasons was that many companies implementing this push notification to the devices, and users are overwhelmed to click 10 times a day to push notifications just to agree that the browser is going to reload. And they just became really blind that threat actor is using their credential to sign into the enterprise corporate system. So, for example, PT41 and Maze Group are very successful to circumvent two-factor authentication and really sign in. We've seen escalation like in 5 minutes. So, recommendation to CISO: really look through what are the right now layers of visibility through that channel, that now everything is coming through one channel, and this is remote connectivity. And when we talked to like a first bank that had 20,000 employees that got hacked, they said, listen, we were not ready for this. We were not ready that these 20,000 users are going to come through one channel. We didn't know like what visibility we're going to get on that channel. It's just the reality. We used to have these people sitting in their offices. Now we're bringing them through 3 connections that we have around the globe. Nothing else. The office doesn't matter anymore. I mean, if something comes out of the office, it's literally malicious right now because we have no one in the office. No one is sitting at a desk. No one is doing anything. And if our servers are conducting some kind of work outside, it's definitely been hacked. So now the number one would be really, how do you gain the visibility into remote infrastructure that you have? And how much confidence do you have in that in infrastructure? And I think it's been very challenging for many organizations to actually do that.
Excellent. Thanks for your input there, Ondrej. Cindy, we talk a lot about culture. What does a secure culture look like to you, and how do you ensure that everyone?
So, Hunter, I really think that having a security culture means that everyone understands and embraces their responsibility in securing the company, right? And so gone are the days where we've established a centralized security function and there's some 20 people that were responsible for security, right? And it's no one else's job, but it really has to become everybody's job. And, so there are several mechanisms that, I have a great and very talented security team, and there are several mechanisms that we've been discussing as part of our security culture, right? And the first is around embedding, security roles and responsibilities in the business, right? Second is around establishing those governance forums that allow you to continuously evaluate the risk and to monitor and measure where you are and where you're going. Third is around training your employees to make sure that not only, is security associated first and foremost with work, but also that they bring it home to their families, recognizing that the lines between work and home and family have really, really been blurred, especially in this crazy time of ours. You want to make sure that you drive security literacy and fluency in your technology functions. So again, it's not the responsibility of just that team, but that everyone has an awareness of basic controls and what a vulnerability is and how to make those assessments, right? And you also want to invest in tools that allow engineers and programming teams to do their own assessments and testing, right? And to drive down that number of vulnerabilities that need to be addressed by that central team again, you know? And you also want to take the opportunity to integrate security messaging campaigns with other events, right? So it becomes part of the fabric and thinking of your company and of your employee base. And last, but definitely by no means least, you know, we think about making sure our executive community is aware and security literate, right? It's not just one person's problem on the executive team, but it's really everyone's. And you know, for us, security is part of our broader enterprise risk management program. And you know, security culture continues to be a critical objective for our organization. And I think it really can help a company to drive the right outcomes.
Interesting stuff. How much time do you spend on security, Cindy?
I spend a bit of time these days on security, Hunter. I mean, it represents sort of the intersection of our enterprise transformation program and our digital transformation program. And it's got the big C in the middle of it, standing for culture. So, you know, I spend quite a bit of time on it.
Oh, interesting. You know, thank you. Back over to you, Jesse. Jesse, when you look at your kind of your risk profile across a global enterprise, how do you assess that?
Yeah, I think, you know, things are changing, quite frankly. We've had the work from home culture affect everybody, but ultimately it's far more than that. We've entered an era where I think almost anything is accepted. And that goes both positively and negatively, quite frankly. So as we think about that, certainly I can go back to just typical, you know, attack surface and risk profile and remodel those. And we've done those things. That's to put us in a position where we've shifted some of our attention, shifted some of our investments, but quite frankly, there's simply far too much. So as an organization, we need to continue to be attentive to that. I would tell you that the landscape for cyber, for compliance, for assurance, for enterprise risk, so on and so forth, is a 45-degree up angle. Right? So as we think about that, every organization is getting comfortable with that. You hearken back to the traditional, the last 10 or 20 years of cybersecurity, your financial services organizations, your insurance organizations, your government and healthcare, the regulated industries are the ones that have had the threshold, both from a profitability perspective as well as from an egregiousness threshold perspective, that they've had to have X, Y, Z. But quite frankly, those types of organizations are difficult to break into these days. And of course they are, because they've invested for 10 or 20 years around cybersecurity. The reality is the goalposts have moved for other publicly traded companies in manufacturing and supply chains. Those thresholds are now being reset back to that same level that the regulated industries are being set in, even though some of these industries might not yet be regulated. So anticipate further investments, anticipate getting to a comfortable level of security across the organization, and anticipate back to the culture conversation that security becomes embedded within the culture. Otherwise, your revenues, your EBITDA would be affected as a result of the lack of awareness around these things.
Makes a lot of sense. What are some initiatives that you have, Jesse, around getting ownership down to the, you know, the division, team, and individual level?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a long ways to go. What's really interesting is this convergence of work and home, right? There are no lines between where I live and work these days. And so I don't mean that literally, but it's figuratively as well. And so truly everybody was already always a cybersecurity bystander. Everybody's interested. It's reality TV to some extent. You can take advantage of that now, quite frankly, by embedding it into your culture, your communications, your awareness, so on and so forth. Everyone's interested in protecting their checking account, just like their corporate login account, right? And so on and so forth. And so blending those things together, it's a euphemism for a simple fact that the people are the focus, right? So shift your attention and your focus to the people and bring them up to a moderate level of understanding from a security perspective, and you're going to see tremendous benefits. If you take the authenticity approach and put people in a position to be aware of what's occurring and empower them to do something about it, you're going to see significant gains. Don't forget though, 7% of your population is still going to click on anything. You just need to be ready for that as well.
Thank you. Great points, Jesse. You know, I'd love everyone to chime in on this kind of parting comments. We've been through an unbelievable experience, professional lifetime experience in this most recent crisis. I think the fact that how the market sold off and the actual recovery was unusual as well, unprecedented for sure. What are the lessons learned and or the feeling that you have, Jesse? Is it the best time ever here to be a tech professional, a CISO or a CIO, leading an organization, a global organization in your case?
Yeah, Hunter, I think the change is unprecedented, and we can take advantage of it positively or negatively. I think what you're seeing, the fatigue that I referred to before, people are tired, right? And as a result of that, they're distracted by everything that happens every single day. Yet at the same time, from a leadership perspective, if we put ourselves in a position to do something different and take advantage of the change environment, because truly almost anything is acceptable at this point, we're going to come out on the far side in a very positive way.
Thanks, Jesse. Great points. Marcus, same question over to you. I mean, you guys are right in the middle of this whole thing. I'm guessing sales are off the charts.
Yeah, and I think to your point in terms of the roles, in terms of taking advantage of the unprecedented disruption, but also increased dependency and focus, and maybe a new understanding in terms of what technology means in terms of that digital transformation, the ability to embrace that and lean into kind of an innovative way forward, right? And I think you're seeing that with a number of companies in terms of what the other side looks like. And I think for us, it is, again, that security as you go. And I think Cindy's comments, Jesse's comments, Ondrej's comments have all been fantastic, from Ondrej's of needing visibilities, Jesse and both Cindy's in terms of security culture and security. And I really think security, and in the digital space, really seeing as a joint enabler rather than an obstacle as part of innovation, right? I think you're really seeing that language and that transformation occur, which I think is great, right? I mean, too often we saw innovation occur minus security, and then it became, a real problem once it hit the market and when it went out. And I think those two things are working very well together.
Excellent. Thanks, Marcus. Ondrej, you want to jump in? Final comments?
Okay. Life is a bridge. Just get ready. We often come to organizations and tell us, no, you don't understand. We've got everything. We've got 80 pieces of technology that ever exist in the universe. Or they tell you that you don't understand. We've got nothing to lose. Okay. If we are tomorrow digitally naked, it doesn't matter. Right? And both of these statements are false. Right? Don't get fooled yourself by what you have and who you are. There are bigger people on the planet that fall because of that lack of self-awareness of your own identity, what Jesse pointed out, what Marcus put in technology, and Cindy about culture. And I remember in my old era days, if you look at the military, cyber military units, why they're very effective compared to civilian, and how civilians run the company, they have one distinguished quality. When they set their strategy, they stick to it. And one of the strategies is that they have, as a part of a culture, discipline of finishing. Meaning you have to finish the adversary. You have to finish what you started. When you look at security integrations in enterprises, we almost never finish at 100%. There's always a hole in a system. There's always a vulnerability. Whoever coded a program, there's always a corner being cut. And that's what the threat actors basically exploit. They're not super smart, they're not super sophisticated. They're just looking at our process, how we as a human being operate in a civilian world. And we're not making errors, by the way. We're just making shortcuts. And we're creating these temporary solutions that become a permanent into it. And I remember one of the generals that I used to work said that it's great to have a strategy, but a culture eats strategy for breakfast. If we don't create a culture of achievers, if we don't create a culture of people who really care to finish the line, then you lost the battle.
Yeah, Ondrej, well said. Love it. Great points. Hey, Cindy, just a broader topic of discussion here. This is probably our 15th to 20th digital summit in New York. So I thought the content today was exceptional.
Totally, Hunter. It was very relevant. And all of the different speakers that you had today, whether it be through a panel or one-on-one interviews, were really insightful. So you continue to put together a really important and relevant agenda. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thanks for being a key part of the platform and HMG network. We'll talk to you in just 1 minute. Again, big thanks, Cindy, Jesse, Ondrej, Marcus. Really appreciate your active engagement. Another great summit. We have one more segment here. It's the HMG Strategy Top Technology Executives Who Matter Awards recognition program. It's a program we've been working on for over 12 years on a global level. Remember, it's important, global level. It's a platform that we've worked on and invested in with all of you all, everyone who's been involved with the summit, an interview, a digital interview, a physical summit, a digital summit. We spend a lot of time and energy in elevating the industry, elevating the whole here at HMG with, I think, thought leadership and a research agenda that's different, that matters. It's based on your insights and input and the collective genius of the power of the platform, the power of the network, the power of our partners. A big thanks to our partners here today for supporting today's summit. It was really excited to have Harry Mosley here today, my good friend from Zoom, but David from Better Cloud, Brock from Commvault, Marcus from Darktrace, LaVon from Singtel, Softtek and DataStax, really appreciate it. Benny from Softtek and DataStax for being a partner, and all the speakers and attendees. We couldn't do it without you all, and our partner, both SIM International and the New York Metro SIM chapter, a great partner for going on 12 years. So this last recognition program, it's about throughout the year leading up to a grand gala in the fourth quarter or the first quarter of 2021, a global gala recognition program for all of the folks we've recognized over the last 10 years in the HMG CIO program, as well as the Top Tech Leaders program. Today, we're recognizing both Cindy Finkelman, which you've seen a bunch of today, and Lukman Fazal from who's the CIO of New Jersey Transit. Lukman, great to see you. Cindy, always great to be with you. I think we have a video clip we're going to run here, and the HMG team's going to cue it up. Let's run it.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank HMG for honoring me with the Technology Executives Who Matter Award, my IT staff for their contribution, resulting in invaluable solution towards our goals, and the NJ Transit leadership team for their constant support, allowing me to continuously push forward, making NJ Transit an innovative leader in the transportation industry. Thank you.
On behalf of FactSet and the entire Enterprise Solutions team, I am proud to accept this award. We continue to drive FactSet forward with an enterprise transformation agenda that enables scale in the organization and provides the foundation for fact-based decision-making so that we can be the kind of organization that our clients want to follow. Pride does not even begin to describe how I feel about what we've already achieved together. I am inspired by and in awe of the commitment, drive, and sheer determination that has propelled FactSet's digital transformation. We are at the forefront of changing the game by providing frictionless engagement for our clients and internal stakeholders. Thank you, each and every one of you, for continuing to push me and each other to do better, so that we together can be as successful as a team and as one FactSet.
Thank you.
Hey, great job, both Cindy and Lukman. Cindy, you first. Thoughts on this recognition, and wow, what a great statement in your acceptance.
Thank you, Hunter. Thank you so much for the recognition and for the support that you have given me over the years. I am humbled and honored to accept this award on behalf of my team at FactSet. You know, collectively, we've achieved so much together. You've created a network where we continue to plant the seeds for the future by paying it forward. And we always find ways to engage internally and externally. And for me, it's super important that through this network, I have opportunities to mentor the next generation of our technology leaders. So, you know, again, I want to thank you, your entire HMG family, my FactSet family, and all of the colleagues around this call and the globe who work hard every day, not only to achieve our objectives, but to demonstrate leadership through this network by lifting each other up and supporting each other. Thank you so much, Hunter.
Thank you, Cindy. And I see our mutual friend, Carlise Kennedy, just said hello and congratulations. She's great. Hey, Lookman.
Hey. Over
to you, my friend. You blow me away. You're a really amazing individual. I can only imagine the heavy lifting you've had to do over the past 5 months in keeping your team together, your group together, the whole New Jersey transit system rolling and running. Congratulations. You're a real inspiration.
No, thank you, Hunter. You know, and I want to thank you and your team. You know, I've dealt with Tom and August and Nikki and Melissa and Sneha, all wonderful people. You know, in the jury behind HMG to select us and get us this award. I was eyeing this award for many years. You know, and the brand that you have created, you know, and the network that you have created is invaluable at a personal development level, as well as, you know, connecting with the peers. And you know, when I find executives, I market and sell HMG to them and say, hey, you must join Hunter's HMG network. So tremendous brand recognition. I was also fortunate to connect with other peers in HMG. My executive leadership team, they're all part of HMG. So good job there.
Oh, thank you, Lookman. Great job. Yeah, it's a passion. I love what we do. It's been a journey, 30 years like most of us. And I think I got about another 30 to go. I think my dream and my vision was a lot like Peter Drucker. He worked right to the very end, if you knew the story, into his 90s. And he did it, I think, mostly at the end on video. So with the acceptance now of video as a broad-based communications vehicle, we can impact and influence the world a lot more connected, in a more connected way, the way Harry was talking about earlier, Harry Mosley from Zoom. So look, stay engaged, everyone, stay safe. Really, you guys earned this. That's really important for us to underscore. You really, both you guys blow me away, and you now join about 180 distinguished individuals in this group. Look for that gala coming up around the corner in the fourth quarter, the first quarter. And Cindy, we have a Women's in Technology Summit coming up in October. So thank you, everyone. Great summit, our best Summit of America ever by far. Really appreciate everyone's active engagement. Thanks to our partner input as well, and support. Take care, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Hunter.
Bye. Great to see you all.